Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio. It's time to learn how to draw an eyeball. Yeah, we're going to draw an eye. I think it's going to be really fun to try to impress your friends when I show you how to make it look really pretty realistic. So I'm going to make it really big so it won't be that realistic. It's going to look like a giant eyeball. Okay, let's do it. Yeah. All right, so now the first thing I want to do is I want to remember in our last lesson I talked about drawing a sphere. Okay, well your eyeball is a sphere and it's just sunk back in there into the socket. So there are things that come up around it a little bit that cast shadows and do all kinds of different things. But that's what I have to remember, that it's really just this kind of this round, this eyeball looking thing like that. But we're not going to pay attention too much to that right at this point. I'm going to start actually by showing you the shape of the eyelid above the eyeball. All right, and I'm going to come up like this, knowing that there's an eyeball underneath that. Okay, and so now I'm going to put very lightly, I'm going to put the eyeball like this, just the eye. You don't usually see the entire eyeball sticking out, you know, unless you're doing something really weird like monsters with their eyeballs falling out. Now, you're going to see it set back a little ways. So you see how I've got this thing, not the full circle. I don't want to see that full circle. I'm only going to see part of the circle right there, just like that. So I've got this little rainbow eyelid over the top. And then I'm going to put in the pupil, all right? Pupil, P-U-P-I-L. That doesn't mean student, that means the dark black dot in the middle. And so now I'm going to make this one, I'm going to try to draw that nice and even. I don't know if I can do it this big, like that, only I'm going to leave a hole right there until I know how big I'm going to make this. Now, one of the ways to get that nice and even when you're doing a small, drawing is not to say, oh, well, where am I going to put the pupil? But I think about the shape of the donut around the dot in the middle. That helps me. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to draw that donut around rather than drawing the dot in the middle and having it go all over the place. Okay, so that's just a little tip. Okay, now I'm going to come in here like this, and I want to, then I'm going to come over like this, and I'm going to think, okay, the light's coming from over here. I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to create a nice light, a little place that I cut out. That's a little V that kind of goes towards the middle. And it can be different shapes a little bit, but I'm going to let it just stay like that. And I'm going to leave space for what is called the highlight. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in, and this becomes really quite useful, is that I fill in the pupil with a nice dark graphite. All right. And so I'm going to fill that up. And this is a nice soft graphite, which makes it nice and dark. And if you're painting it, of course, you just use black paint. It's the only thing really that I use black paint for most of the time, especially in, dogs and people. I'll use black paint for the pupils of the eyes, if I'm painting in oil, okay? Acrylic, sometimes I'll use black paint for various things, but in oil paint, the pupil of the eye is really the one thing that I will use black paint for. And of course today we're just using pencil and graphite or charcoal. We could try charcoal too, that'd be fun. And I see I've got a little bit funny over here, but that's all right. I'm trying to make it even. Now you see I've got that big black dot in the middle, and I've got my eyelid. There's the eyelid. Now what's happening? The eyelid, let's make this eyelid a little more like it's really real. All right, it's got two sides to it because your eyelid generally will have kind of a little crease in it, and so I'm putting that second line over the top of it like that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, actually I'm going to use charcoal in order to do this so that it is really good. I'm going to add some charcoal. Look how much darker that charcoal is. So now I'm going to add a little bit of charcoal to it. You don't have to, but I'm going to just do this so that it makes it easier for me to show you what I'm doing. And the eyelid actually casts a shadow onto the colored part, which is called the iris or the cornea, okay? So I've got a pupil, I've got a cornea, and sometimes it's called the iris, okay? Iris. I gotta blow that off. All right, now I'm gonna take my Q-tip and I'm gonna pick up some of that little dusty dirt there in the eye, and I'm going to put in a little bit of that. See how that transferred right in there? Right underneath the lid of that eye, right there. And I'm going to make that nice and dark, just like that, avoiding that little triangle. And I'm going to do this. Now, if the light's coming from over here, it's going to shine over here. So this part of the eye is going to be dark as well. So I'm going to have dark on this side, up to where that light comes in. And I might actually shade this in with my pencil just a second. This is so big. Oh my goodness. If I'm doing an eyeball on a regular size eyeball, it just takes me a couple of seconds to do this part. And see, I'm leaving light out over on this side a little bit too. So it's darkest right underneath that lid. I'm going to just make that even darker. Hold on with my charcoal. So I'm going to make it darker right underneath. And it will exaggerate that just a little bit. I'm just throwing some dark pigment underneath. And it's not going to be quite that dark because I'm going to smooth it out with my Q-tip. And I'll bring that down just a little bit like this. And kind of like bicycle spokes a little bit that way. So I'm dragging it in, dragging it from the top and going back and forth a little bit. Again, I'm going to leave this side a little bit lighter, like that, and then I'm going to do the same thing just a little bit over on this side with my charcoal around like this. And it does have kind of a dark, a lot of people, especially if they're young, will have a nice dark ring around the outside, and then we'll drag that stuff in with our Q-tip again. So I'm going to drag it in, 1, 2, 3, dragging it back and forth. There's lots of different ways of doing this, you guys, but this is just one of my ways of doing it. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that and make that highlight just a little bit smaller, but it's still there. I want that highlight to stay nice and sharp right there, but I want it to not be quite so big. It kind of goes halfway into the dark pupil spot and into the cornea or the iris. Okay, now this is just going to be a little shadow, but not too much. You can see how it looks kind of glowy over here, doesn't it? There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit darker right under here. I'm having troubles here. Let's see, right like that. And I just keep kind of playing around with it a little bit. Now, what other parts of the eye am I missing right now? Well, of course, I've got this fun eyelid here. And you know what? Underneath that eyelid right there, on the whites of the eye, is just a slight shadow too, okay? Just a little shadow too. And there's a little bit of a shadow that comes in like this. I have to decide which eye this is, okay? Why? Well, because there's the tear duct. You know, when you're first little, you just think about this. You think a face goes like this. An eye on a face is just dot, dot, and this is your idea of a face. Dot, dot, smile. So the eyes are just dots when you're little, right? Well, then you get a little bit older and you realize that there's more to eyes. And you might put a little circle around it, and then you learn that there's an eyelid. Well, now I'm going to teach you the next step, and there is a tear duct. Yeah, that's the corner of your eye. So let's see if we can figure that out. I'm just going to put very lightly, I'm going to put a little, let's do this. We're going to come around like this. So it's kind of got a nice little bit of a horseshoe, and then I'm going to make a little squiggly line that kind of goes like that. I don't want to make it too dark, but I need you to be able to see it, so I'm making it a little bit dark. And then I might put a little shadow around it like this and leave a little bit of light in the middle of it, kind of like that. And then I'm going to come down. I don't want to make this too dark right here. But if I were to see it, maybe I would just put a very, very light line like that. And the thing that we don't notice is that there's a thickness of the lower lid, all right? Well, how do I make that? Well, I do it like this. Sometimes I might come back in, I might come in and do a very, very thin second line, or something that kind of comes down like that a little bit. But I don't want to make it too obvious. And then this part will be slightly darker right there. And then I'll put in, that looks a little bit silly, but you can kind of blend it out as it goes back into space a little bit. And it makes that ball. And then I might make that a little darker right there. But yeah, there's a light pink little area that you might be able to see. You don't always see it, but a little bit of a ridge that that kind of gets tucked back up into the eyeball. But the more important part is the tear duct part in the iris and the pupil and the eyelid up above. Sometimes I don't even do anything with that down here. But what I will do is this. I'm not going to hang the eyelashes off of the eyeball itself, but I am aware that there's a line here and a line here. Okay, that's just the thickness of the eye right there. And then I do this. I go 1, 2, 3. I might put 3 little eyelashes off the bottom. I don't put eyelashes all the way across. I will only put 3 eyelashes. If I do any eyelashes on the bottom of an eye, I only put 3 eyelashes. And they're very light and very, very small. Okay, now on the top part, on the other hand, I don't put them up over here, and I might put a few right here, but I might put a few eyelashes, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe some over here. You know, you girls like to put lots of eyelashes on, but you know, you can put as many as you want. I don't care. But don't forget, they kind of curl out a little bit like that. Okay, so I'm going to do one more just to fill it in. Okay, kind of like that. And so we have that eyelash, but I do 3 eyelashes on this, on the bottom, and then more on the top. Okay. Now, well, I think that's a pretty good eyeball, don't you? Okay. I hope that helps. So remember, what did we learn? Okay, the light's coming from here. We have a little Pacman. I call this a Pacman. The kids in my class kind of enjoy that. We have a Pacman eye right here where the mouth is kind of pointing up like this, pointing up to about 1 o'clock, all right? And then we have a dark part at the top underneath the eyelid, and it comes out, it's light on that side, so it's light on this side. But the lightest spot is right there. So it's light on that side. So it's dark, and then it's kind of medium dark right here, and then it gets a little bit lighter there. There's a little bit of a shadow on the whites of the eye right there, and there's a tear duct right there. Practice that, you guys, and I hope you get it down. Practice by looking at one of your family members or your friends, and you know, tell them you're doing it. Otherwise, they're going to think you're staring at them a little bit weird. Say, "Can I look at your eye for a minute? Can I draw it?" You know, and even look at your dog's eye and try that. See how it might be different, or your cat's eye. Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right, hey, next time we meet, we'll be painting something. Won't that be fun? So don't forget to tune in, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.